Well, listeners, we planned to talk about Australia and Tunisia shocking the world, but it's now 10:15 on Thursday night, and that's been all thrown out of the window by some Japanese brilliance. And hey, the Germans are out again. Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. As always, my name is Rory, and I'm joined by my very good friend
Adam. How are you doing, Rory? It's been an eventful evening, hasn't it?
It's incredible. It's incredible. So usually, listeners, we'll let you peek behind the curtain a little bit. We kind of record a little bit earlier because, you know, we're old. We like our early nights. But tonight I was like, you know what? Let's wait the extra 15 minutes or so. Wait until the game finishes. And I could not be happier that we have. We have just witnessed an unbelievable game. You know what we're talking about. Japan 2, Spain 1. And, well, they beat Germany and Spain and lost to Costa Rica, right? How do we? It's so weird. And to be honest, they should have won the Costa Rica game, right? They absolutely dominated Costa Rica. Costa Rica had one shot, one attack. It went in. But before we get into the game properly, we're not even doing like the warm-up speech. We're just going straight into the action.
We're going to go into it.
There's so much to cover. What have been your initial reactions of this Japan team? How much have they surprised you? And then we'll go into the actual game itself.
Well, so to start off with, I'm really impressed by the Japanese team. Like, I think they've got so much potential. Like, I really do feel like this is a team that could build on this team going forward. Like, they can really progress. I think I still agree with your comments, though, on our Twitter account, which is like, why are they leaving certain players on the bench? Like, I don't get it. And they did it against Costa Rica, like you say, and then they really struggled as a result of that. And you kind of think back to that match. At the end of the match, they were like kind of consoling each other and kind of like wondering, like, are they going to win this next match? Because this is a big match, right, against Spain. I think they didn't anticipate to maybe go into this match thinking they needed to win. But when you look at how they played as well, because first half they were absolutely terrible in that respect. Spain completely dominated. But Spain have a habit of doing this, don't they? They did it against the Germans where they played really well for the first half and then collapsed in the second half. And I did mention it on our WhatsApp group. Unai Simon seems to be determined to give away the ball quite easily when he should just hoof the ball. I'm sure there was a lot of people in Spain that were shouting at him through various different TV sets. But yeah, in terms of Japan, like, I don't know. I can't really work them out yet because they have performances like this and then they turn up like they did against Costa Rica. So this is the thing. I think, like, you just have to fine tune it, and you could be coming out with a good squad. I mean, you love Matoma, don't you?
I adore him. I adore everything about him. Every time he comes on the pitch, I'm like, technically, he's fucking brilliant. And like his directness with the ball, his close control, his ability to keep the ball on the pitch when it matters. We'll come on to that. Exactly. Like, he is everything about him. Everything about him is fantastic. And I think what amazes me with the Japan team is, as you said, I don't understand that. It's like they enjoy the challenge of going one goal down to fight back. Because you could start these players And that first half goes completely differently against Spain, I
Mm.
believe, because Japan are able to keep hold of the ball more, even with players like, and I'm not just saying it because I'm an Arsenal fan, even though people will say I'm saying it because I'm an Arsenal fan. Someone like Tomiyasu, when he came onto the pitch, completely that right-hand side, Spain got nothing down that right-hand side the second he, like Spain's left, their right. They got nothing down that side the second he came on. It was all attacks on the other wing that came through. So I think players that like him with that Premier League experience, him, Mitoma, even Doan, who came on at halftime and completely changed the game. I think if you started with them, maybe you wouldn't put yourself in such a bad situation by halftime. But then maybe part of it is the manager going, no, these players are better off the bench. These players are better.
Maybe.
With 40 minutes to go, half an hour to go, they have more of an impact than if they're lagging for the last half an hour, 20 minutes. Like, I don't know. It could be incredibly clever management, but against Costa Rica, where they didn't start the players as well, it didn't work to bring them on. So it's like there is a balance here to be found. I think what Japan are lucky-ish with is that their draw has been quite kind. So they get Morocco now, right?
Yeah,
which is like, I think that's a very even match. But for Japan, this is a chance for them to actually go out and try and win a game from the beginning, I think. With Germany and Spain, they've obviously had game plans, but with this Morocco one, I'm pretty sure it's Morocco.
So just clarified, Japan play Croatia.
Oh,
which
damn. Okay, that's okay.
Tough.
I'm going to reverse everything I've just said.
Morocco play Spain.
Morocco, that's going to be a fiery one as well. We'll get onto that. But okay, so ignore that bit. Japan against Croatia is going to be a similar game plan to what they've had to do against Germany and Spain, right? So maybe we'll see them saving those players for later. I just find it confusing as to why the manager does. But he does. He brought them on and they had the impact they needed. But what I really enjoy about this Japan team as well, and I'll see if you agree, is that what you're always going to get from a Japanese team is complete commitment. They're never going to stop running, just balls to the wall, full throttle football.
Energy.
And I think if you think to 2018, when they went out on yellow cards, those last 2 minutes, they went out to the 2 goals in the last minute or whatever against Germany, right? Or against Belgium.
Yeah, Belgium.
It feels like they've learned from that now. And this team has a bit more experience and they have a bit more technical ability than that team. So it's not just running for the sake of running.
Yeah.
There's an actual plan. There's an idea. So that a game like this, I think 4 years ago, Spain win that in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, true.
I think you can see this team has grown a bit. I don't know what you think about it.
Yeah, I think you're alluding to like how savvy they are, maybe more astute in terms of their management. Because I feel like they have learned to be a bit more controlled with their play. And certainly, like you say, a few years back, they probably would have gone gung-ho football, thinking that's the way to do it. And maybe they've kind of looked back at certain teams and their successes at World Cups and gone, actually, we don't need to play that way. I'm sure we're going to allude to Poland at some point. But if you can play like that and get through, then that rubs off on teams, right? Yeah. So this is the thing. So I think they've really learned from this experience. But what I wanted to ask you was about Spain as well, because obviously we're talking about, and given rightly the credentials and saying well done to Japan, but Spain, are we a bit worried about their kind of progress now? Because this is kind of the stuttering bit that they seem to have. Like they don't seem to be well drilled sometimes. I don't know what is it a flow aspect, or like I almost think with their midfields they do well for like 45 minutes and then they sort of collapse and they don't know what to do. What's your thoughts on it?
I think, well, it's the Anglo-Italian curse coming through again, because I finally praised them on Monday and said maybe we were underestimating them, and then this goes and happens. But I think with Spain, they've only got one idea, right? And then we know that with Spain, but Japan know that as well. They've got one idea. That's what they do. They play football that way. They commit to it, and that's fantastic, right? 9 times out of 10, it works. But this time it didn't. What I would say is when they won it in 2010, they did also lose a game in the group stages to Switzerland, and they still went on to win it. So I don't know if it's like a huge thing, but what I did notice was that it seemed to be an air of complacency. Like we were messaging on the WhatsApp group coming into the second half, and as you said with Unai Simon, we were like, he's determined to give the ball away. One of these, he's going to get pressured and it's going to go into the net. And it seemed like there was just this as they got that goal, they went, okay, job done. Right, we can just see this game out now. And even when the pressure was on and they had to try and win the game, Enrique kind of made this really weird substitution. I think they were 2-1 down at the time, but he took off Morata.
He did,
and now we've given Morata plenty of stick, right? But this tournament, he's been bloody good. And when you're a goal down, he's the striker that you bring on. He's not the striker that you like. He gives you that other option, that slight plan B, that for those last 5-10 minutes, Spain could have just been pinging it into the box.
Exactly.
Like getting Asensio and Olmo to just whip balls in, and Morata could have been on the end of it. That's how the first goal came for Spain. That's how their goal came. It was a ball into the box, header. So I think it's kind of weird that Enrique decided to make that decision. I think ultimately it kind of cost them the game, or it cost them a result anyway. But yeah, I think we saw a kind of collective foot off the pedal from Spain. And I think maybe what this could be is a wake-up call. And now when they go into Morocco, they go, okay, we can't. Like, that was close. Because if Germany if we hadn't have beaten Costa Rica 7-0, and if Germany had won by more, we would be out. So I think it could be a wake-up call. But what do you think? Do you expect them to
I think
from this,
you alluded to the first point when you talked about Tomiyasu, and I'm thinking about that. They've done a lot of their play down that left-hand side with Alba. So the fact that he kept him quiet, and I'm curious, actually, I think Morocco obviously have the wingers. That's what they're really famed for. So the likes of Ziyech, for example, you got Hakimi Ashraf as well. So it'll be very interesting to see like how the wings go. Like I think that's where it's going to be potentially played at, and then it's just a question of who's going to cancel who. Because I can see just bombing, counter-attacking football here. So do Spain take a different approach and kind of concentrate down the middle, like try and mix it up a bit? And I'm fascinated to see like not only Enrique but how Morocco may approach it, because I think they might be wary of Spain's threat down the sides. But I also think like at the back, they don't seem stable like Spain. I just don't get that feeling. Like most tournaments, you kind of talk about teams being built on good defenses. I don't get that feeling with Spain. I still feel like they are like a few players short of like being a winning team. Like, I don't know. It's weird. But also on the point of Morata, the fact that they bought him off and didn't really have like a suitable replacement, in the sense of normally like most teams have someone that they can bring off the bench and, you know, almost be like an impact. Whereas Asensio, yes, he's had some good starts with Real Madrid, for example, but I don't actually feel like he's at that level to maybe
it's not a type for type. It's not a type for type replacement.
But even if we're not saying type for type, you almost want someone that gives you something different, right? And I don't quite get like, he feels like more of a midfielder to me than he does as a natural striker. And I don't know if that's harsh, but I do feel like he doesn't add too much of a threat compared to, say, Dani Olmo, who gives you something different. But again, Dani Olmo's role isn't going to be in the middle, you know, score that one opportunity. So I feel like Enrique got it wrong. He just got the substitutions wrong.
I think he did get it wrong. And what you had was 3 wingers on the pitch and no striker. And you're like, oh right, okay. So who are the wingers aiming for exactly? Who are they cutting balls back to?
There's no Adama Traore, right?
Because in midfield you've got Gavi, Pedri, and Busquets, and they're all fantastic runners. They're all fantastic midfielders, but none of them are famous for making late runs into the box off the top of my head, right? So I think Enrique kind of got it wrong here. He kind of got it wrong. But I think Japan managed the game incredibly well. They went to a flat back 5, played 5-4-1 for the last half an hour, but they still had the better chances in the second half. They still had more dangerous chances. I think they could have gone 3 up. Was it Doan who was through and he just lost his composure a bit? And I think Asano had one as well. They definitely had the better chances. I think there was only one moment where the Japanese keeper kind of half spilled it and Yoshida managed to clear it, where I thought, oh. And then there was the Olmo chance just after that, where he just scuffed it a bit, but the keeper got down to it. But I think overall, if any team was going to score in the second half, it kind of felt like it was going to be Japan. So crazy result for them. They do go up against Croatia in the next round. Now, again, during the day today, we've been talking about Croatia, drawing 0-0 with Belgium today. And I feel like Croatia. Now, this is the curse. This is going to put
This
the
is
nail in
already
the coffin
starting,
now.
yeah.
That I feel like Croatia have genuinely got a shout of winning the whole thing, right? Because I thought they were going to be. I said it on Monday. I thought that 2018 was their peak, and we're seeing that they've kind of got almost. I think their attacking options are a bit better. Their defense is a bit better. Players like Gvardiol at centre back. They've still got Lovren, who is definitely worth a rick or two. But I feel like in general, the squad feels a bit better. And I'm going to put my neck on the line and say they are the biggest dark horse now. That's as bold as I'm going to get, is they are the biggest dark horse. How do you think they'll do against Japan? And how do you feel they'll do in the tournament overall?
I did get an inkling today after today's match that you kind of maybe feel like they've got a few tied legs right now. And I don't know how far they will go. This is based on the assumption that I feel like they just are lacking a few more quality players. I think if they had like a quality striker like Kramaric, I think he's getting better with every game, right? And I think the game where he wasn't so much of a focal point, whereas they kind of made sure he was the fox in the box, made sure he was just there rather than doing the hard work. I think you started to see the fruition of what he can actually add to that Croatian squad. But I do feel like they are very dependent on that midfield. So Modric, Brozovic, and Kovacic. Now, if you can control that midfield, I don't know where the spark comes from for Croatia, because you are very reliant then potentially on the wing backs. Juranovic, who obviously plays for Celtic, he's had a few iffy games during this tournament. I think he hasn't been completely convincing for me. So I feel like he can be a player that you can get at, for example. And I think that was really proven in the last game previously. But I do feel that Croatia will progress. I think there'll be quarterfinals. I don't think they'll go all the way. Sorry, Rory, but to kill your bubble, I think just for Croatian fans as well that may be hounding me because I'm a Polish fan. Yes, you will definitely progress further than Poland. That's for sure.
I think we can nail.
We'll save that for later. We'll save that for later.
Our colours to the mast on that one. They're probably going to get further than Poland. But what we need to say about Croatia is their opponents. In a 0-0, Belgium. Wow.
Yes.
Romelu Lukaku alone had 1.67 XG and managed to miss all of them in the second half.
One just hit him as well.
One did just hit him. And what he needs to do, I always remember, right, when Olivier Giroud used to play for Arsenal, he used to miss a chance and he'd be really dramatic after it and like slap the ground and be like in pain and like, and it just made every miss worse, right? So Olivier, just get up and bloody score. Lukaku needs to stop the stunned thing that he does when he misses.
Incredible Hulk thing at the end, right?
All that. It just makes it look worse, Rom. Just do what Haaland did when do you remember in the Charity Shield when he missed that chance and everyone was like, oh, he's done. And he just laughed and walked off and was like, it's right, I'll score. What you're showing there is that you're completely like, oh, fuck, that was the chance and I've missed it, right?
Yeah.
I know there's a lot more to go with Romelu's dip in form than that, but I think that's a start, right? That's a start. But Belgium have finally, of course they have, they've sacked Martinez. It took them 0.5 seconds after kickoff, I think, to sack them.
There was this awkward moment where Martinez is interviewed by someone. I think it was a Belgian press, and they asked him, so you're going to stay in a job? He said, no comment on that. And then he kind of suddenly moonwalks out of the scene. Like,
I saw that.
Weird. So weird. But yeah, he knew the game was up, didn't he? I think he's known that for over 6 months by the sounds of it.
So. Yeah. So we're not going to really talk about Croatia much more, but with Belgium, what can we say about how is this are they the official meltdown team? Are they the meltdown team of the tournament?
Possibly, yeah, because we didn't even cover it on Monday's show, but about Vertonghen obviously getting wound up by Kevin De Bruyne. And his comments about, you've got an aging squad, for example. And I think Kevin De Bruyne just said it straight. And unfortunately, Vertonghen and the likes didn't really like it. I think it's quite funny to think that Lukaku had to break it up. Like, I'd imagine like Lukaku getting involved going, he's true, he's right. But it's weird because I think
I still think it's a massively ill-judged thing to do from KDB. It's still, even if that's what you think, come on, you've had enough media training to be like, no, we can still do it. I believe in the
Well, you
squad.
know
It's
what's
still,
savvy to
yeah,
say, for example, like, yeah, you're just encouraging more press
yeah,
releases, etc. But maybe that's what he wanted. Maybe he
hmm
kind of like was reading the wall and kind of saying, like, look, we haven't got an inspiring coach in
yeah,
Roberto
yeah,
Martinez.
yeah,
He's not maybe got us drilled. That was
mhm,
quite evident, to be honest,
yeah,
in
yeah,
the 3 games. I don't feel like they were that impressive. And you know, when you're relying on the likes of Axel Witsel, etc.,
mhm,
to still do a job when there's younger players around you, and he's not encouraging those players to join
no.
into that kind of first team, I do wonder whether Belgian football is now going to probably take a few years to recover. Like, I do
Well,
feel like, there's
it's
opportunities, right?
it's interesting because when I was talking to Sasha Tavolieri, one of the things
Mm,
he said was that Martinez had been really key in like building infrastructure within Belgian football and being like really making sure that the investment in youth football and stuff was like
mm,
how Spain had done it, that kind of
right.
development idea, and like he was really key in that. And you're like, okay, right, well, that's a really sensible, great, forward-thinking thing to do for a manager who obviously cares about the job that he's in and wants to see development and he wants to see improvement. But then, yeah, within the squad, we said it on Monday, you could show me that squad, and I don't know whether it's 2016 or 2022. I
That's
don't know
it.
what year it is. So it's this really strange dichotomy between it, I think. But yeah, he could have been a bit braver with his selection. But I think the second that performance against Canada, which they only win because Canada are Canada, that's the only reason they win
Yeah.
that game. I think then it's almost impossible to make or to take a risk. Because after that
Mm,
performance, I don't know, maybe he goes, you know what, I'm going to play Trossard, I'm going to drop Witzel, I'm going to whatever. But then if you then don't win that game, it just doubles down, if you know what I mean. So I think
yeah.
the time for him to take that risk was the Canada game. The time for him to
Yeah.
try those young players was against Canada and go, okay, look, you're probably still going to win. Sorry, Canada. But if you don't, you can be like, okay, my bad. Now we play the full strength team, right? And so I think
Yeah.
maybe that was the game where he could have had a bit more leeway. But once that performance against Canada came in, he had no chance. He had to just stick with the old heads. And the fact of them not being drilled and no idea, that's only down to him. That is only down to him.
Exactly. That is down to him. But I will also allude to the fact of something that we say about England, which is he had the Nations League. Like, he had a
Mm-hmm.
relatively easy group. It was Holland, Wales, Poland, for example, in that group. And he could have at least exploited that and played
Yeah.
around with the
Yeah.
formation.
Yeah.
But I remember even against Poland, they kind of played the same players that we're seeing at the World Cup. Like, granted, there might have been a few injuries here and there, but again, you kind of wonder, right? Do you think Belgium could have done a lot more in the prep going into the World Cup? And I feel that's very evident on this performance.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they brought in Lukaku, who hasn't been match fit for Inter Milan as well,
Yeah.
like they are really struggling. I mean, Hazard, I didn't really get that. Didn't get his
No.
inclusion, for
No. No.
example. I
No.
could understand his brother, but not Eden, for example. So again, you've got players like Doku, for example, sat on the bench doing relatively well in the French league, for example. De Ketelaere, for example, another
Yeah.
one. He could have benefited from just being there in the squad,
Mm-hmm.
just giving a bit more impetus for that Belgium squad. But hey ho, bye bye Martinez and bye bye Belgium.
Yeah, that's it. They're done. They're done.
Yeah,
And the other game in that group was Morocco 2, Canada 1, which means that Morocco topped the group. Unbelievable from Morocco. What a
yes,
campaign. Ziyech scoring within 4 minutes. 4 minutes. And Youssef
yeah, helped
En-Nesyri,
by the
who
goalkeeper.
massively, definitely, definitely. And Nesri from Sevilla getting the second.
Yeah.
Aguerd, the West Ham man, getting the own goal. What have you made from Morocco? We
Mm.
briefly touched on them. It is all about those wide spaces, right?
Yeah, pretty much. But they are exciting as a team overall. I feel like maybe we kind of focus too much on the wing play, but actually in the center, they're quite solid as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of helps that wing play element. And yeah, I do feel like, Morocco on a day against Spain, they could cause a lot of issues. Could we be saying this is an African side that goes and progresses even further? Because, we've got certain players that play in Europe, right? So they know how to play against certain teams. I could see them causing a shock against Spain. I really do. I could see like a 1-0 on the cards. I really do feel like Basri, our friend, will probably be even more happier, as he put it on his little clip to us. But yeah,
the
no,
politics
I
behind that game as well, man. We've just got past
wait.
USA Iran, and now we've got Morocco Spain. Like, if people aren't aware, I hate to mansplain, but if people aren't aware, there's a tiny little enclave in Morocco called Qatar, which is still technically Spain. A lot of colonial history and stuff there.
Yes,
this is going to be a spicy game. This is going to be, there's a lot riding on this. We've had Tunisia against France. We're going to get onto that. This is another one of them, right? I think Morocco are going to be right up for it. And Spain, like we said, it's all about how they bounce back. I think also with Morocco, we need to talk about their midfield, like Amrabat as well. As a player, we've watched him quite a bit in Serie A, obviously, and he's a player that we've kind of been an admirer of for a while. But I think he's been absolutely dominant in that midfield. And then alongside him, Sabiri and Unahi, I want to get the pronunciation right. They've both, just that three in midfield, have been able to stem the flow of attacks and build really, really well and get the ball to Ziyech and Boufal and make sure that those attacks get that speed they need. I think Amrabat is a player that for Fiorentina is becoming more and more important, and we're seeing that on the Morocco pitch as well. So really wanted to give Amrabat out a shout. Also, I do have him in Fantacalcio, so always want to give him a little bit of a shout. But yeah, Morocco topped the group. Can you believe it? Unbelievable.
Yes.
We knew that game. We knew that group was going to be so much chaos, right? We were excited. We were excited about that group.
Yeah. I was definitely looking forward to what they could do, and just hoping they could just progress to the next round. I think for me, like just the fact that they're topping that group is even bigger achievement. So let's see what they can do against the Spanish. I really cannot wait.
I know, exactly. And we're going to quickly go because we've not even talked about. Have we talked about Germany? We've not talked about Germany yet, have we? We're
not
going to
yet.
get on to Germany.
No.
Very quickly before we talk Germany, thoughts on Canada? I'm really sad they've gone out. I really enjoyed them. I
think I've kind of alluded to it in our Instagram posts. I think they're just going to learn from this experience because, I think it's a bit of games management they have to learn. Maybe the coach needing to learn how to inspire his own players instead of opposition players. But yeah, also I feel like almost going into that final third, they do lack that know-how willingness in terms of how to play around that area, because Jonathan David, for all the skill and will that he's got, he isn't enough. Like, we've been talking about superlatives with Alphonso Davies, Buchanan, for example. I think they've got some really good, interesting players. It's going to be now a case of almost like Wales did. How can they build to ensure that they make the next World Cup or the next tournament, for example? I think if they can do that, then there's a really bright future for Canada. And I think they're also doing this like naturalization of certain players as well. I think they're starting to look into that a bit more. So that will help them going forward. I mean, there was rumors about Tomori potentially taking up a Canadian citizenship. Now, can you imagine that?
That's a game changer. That
would be huge for them. That would be absolutely huge because he was originally from Calgary. I think he was born in Calgary.
Yeah.
So again, opportunity there for that kind of style of players to maybe just turn up for the Canadian squad. So huge player that could be for them if they manage to.
I like that. My imagination is just running. My imagination is just running away with itself. But this did get kind of plant a thought in my head. Just even looking forward to the next World Cup, there's a really, really interesting situation. There's going to be 3 countries, and none of them want to be the worst host nation.
Yes.
So there's going to be like a mini. Yeah, exactly. So there's going to be like a mini tournament within a tournament of like who is the worst host nation. It's going to be Mexico, but it's fine. I think it could be. So there's an extra little incentive. But I think, as you said with Jonathan David, he's only 22 now. By the time that World Cup comes around, he'll be 25, 26, arguably starting to hit his peak by that point. So maybe he can be that focal point for Canada. This was their first tournament, his first tournament. I really enjoyed watching them. I'm not sure their manager will still be in charge by that point, but I was really excited by them. And I think they've added something to the tournament. I think everyone will look back and go, I enjoyed watching Canada. And I think they would have taken that really. And they got 2 goals.
Yeah, exactly.
They got 2 goals.
They just need to work out where to play Alphonso Davies. I think that's the main thing.
Yes.
If they can work that one out, then they could even do better. But let's talk about Germany.
Let's talk about Germany. Wow. 2 World Cups in a row, out in the group stage. Both at the cost of Asian teams. I believe it's South Korea that knocked them out last time.
Yeah.
It was South Korea that knocked them out last time, unless I'm having a fever dream. I think it was. And then Japan have taken their space, arguably, in the group this time. And what can we say about Germany? No striker. No striker. I think that's it. No striker.
No striker. There's a lot of rumours about there being disharmony, because if you remember after the first group game, there's rumours around Gundogan, for example, shouting out to the German press that there's no togetherness within the squad. A lot of rumours about infighting. And then Kai Havertz came out just before the second game saying, we cleared it out in the open. We made sure everyone's kind of concerns were shouted about. Now, has that ruined the harmony in the squad potentially? Wow. It's going to be interesting, but there's been a lot of criticism about Hansi Flick going into this tournament, about him being more privileged or more of the Bayern Munich persuasion, shall we say, in terms of the way he picked certain players. I'm surprised at some of the picks that he introduced for this squad, I think, in certain respects, like Mkuku, for example. I was very interested to see whether he'd be integrated into this squad, but as far as I can see, he's not even made a subs appearance.
No, he's not even come on.
He's not even come on, which you think surely against Costa Rica, when you're chasing, you're needing loads of goals. Chuck him on. He's been doing really well for the under-21s. I mean, I read that record, which was, I think it was 6 goals in 5 games for the under-21s, and he hadn't appeared for obviously the German national side. So again, you're kind of thinking, we talked about Füllkrug last game. Could this have been an opportunity? Also, when you look at Leroy Sané's introductions, it's been kind of random. He seems to have helped drive that team a bit forward when it came to certain attacks. Gnabry hasn't had a fantastic tournament. Defensively, they've looked a bit shocking. There's that really bad stat about Nico Schlotterbeck, who I really do rate as a defender, but he is still learning his trade, it's fair to say, because he gives away penalties every other game. That's his record at the moment for the German national side. So, But again, you kind of look at this squad and go, you've got certain individuals, but maybe they're not playing as a team. What's your thoughts?
I feel like, we're still at the start of a transition. And I think that's being kind of polite to Germany. The 2018 was the end of a transition. And this is the beginning, the end of an era, sorry. And this is the beginning of a transition. It's a new manager, new squad, and it's not been gelled in properly. Now, we kind of touched on just before, off mic, that even in the Nations League, they weren't particularly convincing. No. I think he didn't really have he wasn't able to stamp his authority on that team, his idea on that team. I still think a player like Mats Hummels would have made all the difference at centre-back if you call him up. Now, he's not injured, is he? He just didn't get called up.
No.
Which, to me, is mental. If you're playing really inexperienced centre-backs, you need an experienced centre-back there. And Hummels has his deficiencies like every player does.
Yes.
But I think in terms of experience and being able to coach another centre-back through a game, he can do that perfectly. I think it's a really weird thing to not call him up. In terms of the lack of striker, I think Germany just at the moment do not have a world-class striker. We've talked about the tournament in general. There aren't many world-class strikers. Arguably, the only world-class striker on the planet at the minute is with his feet up in Norway. If you know what I mean, there's not many world-class strikers about.
Very
so
true.
I think that's not only a German problem, but what you have to do is try and find a way around it. And he's not been able to do that. I like that Füllkrug has had this kind of fairy tale thing. It's a shame that now we won't be able to look back on the fairy tale with any fondness. Not really.
No, exactly. True.
But it's a nice story. It's a nice thing of there's a lot of players who've started from the bottom and now they're in the World Cup, right? So it's a really nice story. But I think, with Germany, they just never looked convincing. Never looked convincing. Never looked like they had a clear idea. And Hansi Flick is going to be under a lot of pressure now. I think the German like the DFB in general have been very patient. They were with Joachim Löw even when like things didn't go to plan, right?
Exactly.
They were still very patient with him. So it'll be interesting to see if they are. But I think he does need to look at this Bayern Munich lean, because within Germany, with the fans, all that will do is piss people off more. I mean, Bayern Munich are the Juventus of Germany, right? Everyone hates them if you don't support them. So if then it looks like you've got a bias towards that team and you lose on the pitch, that's going to be like the papers are going to chew him up tomorrow morning. Jesus Christ, I would hate to be him tomorrow morning.
Absolutely nailed it, because that's the fans in Germany are just not liking the picks for this squad. Also, you've got sympathisers like Oliver Bierhoff and Philipp Lahm that are at the DFB. So, I think this is going to be the critical moment in terms of, do they start blending in a lot more of the younger generations, like your M. Kukus, etc., and kind of maybe breed a success going forward? Because I think when I think about it as well, a bit more deeply, where's Thomas Muller? Where's he been for this tournament? Like, he's been one of those kind of experienced pros you expect to like maybe pull this team together. But he needs
a foil. He needs someone to play off, because he plays well with Lewandowski. He plays well with whoever it is, Mandzukic, if you know what I mean.
It's, Mane, whatever. Yeah, exactly.
He needs that foil. He's not that out and out. He's such an individual player, Muller. It's
maybe
weird.
They've got too many players that can play very similar roles. So Kai Havertz is another example. He's not a striker, really, but
and his club and country keep trying to make him a striker.
And he scores the goals. This is the thing. Like, you can't get him out of the squad, right? So on that basis, they keep him. But then you kind of go, do you kind of like, substitute someone like Goretzka or Kimmich, for example? I haven't seen Kimmich, for example, play fantastically well for maybe over 2 years now. I haven't seen a particular game that stands out for me. And you got Musiala, for example. So it seems like you're kind of squeezing the players that you think should be working, but maybe they're not working for the team as such. And sometimes you need those players that aren't necessarily skilled like the other players, but they do help the balance of the squad. You've got someone that, for example, when we talk about Man United, they had the Darren Fletchers, etc., that weren't technically
John O'Shea's.
Even Arsenal had it with Ray Parlour, for example. This is the thing. So maybe that's the balance they needed. Maybe they needed a striker like Fulkrug, who wasn't like fantastic, but could hold up, maybe introduce these players and score the odd goal here and there.
Well, look at France with Giroud, right? That's what France do with Giroud. They improve with him. Now he's obviously a world-class striker, I think. I still can't figure it out.
I think he is.
His role is to bring everyone else into the game, right? His role isn't even really to score goals. His role is to bring everyone else in.
Exactly.
So I think, having someone like that, I think it's a massive learning curve for Hansi Flick. We do need to say, though, fair play to Costa Rica. Absolutely. Without sounding too patronizing, you get slapped 7-0 and you come back and you win 1-0 against the team that go on to win the group, and you put up a hell of a fight against Germany. Now, we said I think Costa Rica are never bad. They're always quite good. They always do quite well in World Cups. They were pretty terrible. But I think they've redeemed themselves with the last two performances, and they'll be able to walk out and go, because that could have spiraled so quickly. Losing 7-0 your first game, and then if you lose that Japan game, and then it could have spiraled. But do you think signs of promise there? I think they're the worst team at the tournament, really, but signs of promise?
I think you're kind of maybe seeing this Costa Rica side being the last for a decade, potentially, because I think if you look at the players that they've got at this disposal, for example, the likes of Brian Ruiz, I don't think we'll see him again play for them. Oviedo, they've got a few players. Joel Campbell, Navas, I do feel sorry for him. But then, for example, you got Jeanette Jewson, who I mentioned on our preview. Promise, but again, him alone isn't enough. I think they need a number of players, and I suspect last time we'll see Costa Rica for a long time in the World Cup stages. Well,
they did give us the beautiful moment, even if it was only for 3 minutes or whatever it was, where Japan and Costa Rica were going through and both Germany and Spain were going out. We lived in that reality for a few minutes, guys, and we can thank Costa Rica for that. They gave us that moment of, oh my God, this could happen. Right, so they've definitely added to it. So I hope we hope to see you back soon again, Costa Rica. But that was all of the action from today. I think, bloody hell, I think that's all the action from today. We need to go back to yesterday. I'm sorry, Adam. I don't know whether to apologise or not. We need to go back and discuss Poland battle their way through. Where do we start here?
So I start off by making an apology on behalf of all the Polish people for everyone having to endure 90 minutes of bleaching their eyes to Michniewicz's tactics. As I kind of stressed out on Monday, I'm baffled by it. I like the range of emotions I went through last night, like including shitting myself, like just like literally at the prospects of like us being absolutely battered by France. Like I can't work it out. I really can't work this team out. And I'm looking at this like second bottom for possession stats alone. Costa Rica, the lowest on 3.3%, for example, versus ourselves at 34%. We passed more in the Argentina match than we did against Mexico and Saudi Arabia. Make that one out. But yeah, I just... when you look at how many shots we had on target as well, like during the duration of this group stages, we've had five shots on target.
Wow.
2 being goals against Saudi Arabia, and that's it. Like 17 shots in total. How do you expect us to qualify? But we've just managed to do it. And I was going to put this question to you, Rory.
Yeah.
Do you class this as success? Because we haven't done this since 1986 World Cup, where we progressed to the quarterfinal stages and got knocked out. At that time, we had players like Zbigniew Boniek, who was a class player in his day.
Yeah.
Whereas right now, obviously, we're seeing players like Lewandowski and Zielinski. But how do you... Like, I still can't get my head around how we expected to create chances when we don't get the ball forward to players like Lewandowski and support them. Like even the substitutions were baffling. I don't know. But again, I'll just go back to my question. Does this seem like a success to you based on the fact that we've progressed, but we play absolute dog shit like that?
I think it has to be. It has to be. I think something that stood out to me this tournament is loads of people being like, not everybody plays beautiful football. I don't like it. It's like, well, it's tournament football, which is always pragmatic. You have to be pragmatic first in tournament football.
Exactly.
No teams play beautiful football, really, except Spain in 2010 and Brazil 60% of the time. It has to be pragmatic. I think what we're seeing is the kind of purists form of pragmatic. Let's try and be poetic about it, right? We're seeing like the purest form of pragmatic. And I think what has almost happened is because before the tournament, people like, I think Polish journalists were saying to him, look, you need to try and like express yourself more with this team. Now, I get the feeling that Michniewicz's is a bit like, I'll show you. And he's like, I'm going to do the exact opposite to what you guys do, or to what you guys suggest, and I'm going to take you further than you thought. So you have to praise me. And I think, look, this is an incredible achievement for Poland. Like I said, the first time since 1986. That's huge. That's huge. No matter how you look at it, it's massive. In a group with Mexico. Now, Mexico, it turns out, are not that great, but
no,
that is still a very good achievement. A Saudi Arabia team that we were just talking about, how impressed we've been by them.
Yeah,
you finished above them, right? You weren't disgraced by Argentina, although the last 20 minutes of that game were a disgrace because both teams just stopped playing football. It was like that Germany-Austria game in this 50s.
Or like that Simpsons episode where they're just playing between each other, basically.
Back to the center. Yeah, like it was a disgrace the last 20 minutes. But there's a part of me that loves, like, you know, that meme of like the sickos, like, haha, yes. Yeah. I kind of feel like that, where I'm like, I really enjoy how bad this is. Like, it just because I know how angry it's going to make people. And I was watching, I was like, this is just Danny Murphy crying into a microphone for 90 minutes as he was like, this isn't football. And then they still get through. I just found it
you could sense his foaming, couldn't you? But I kind of messaged you. I said, did a Polish builder piss in his tea or something like that? Like,
I hope so.
Literally,
I really hope
so pissed off. Like, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm sure he's had occasions where they haven't been brilliant in matches and he's had to play this style. So
he played for Crew Alexandra. What do you think? He's like, Like,
This is
anyway.
I seem to remember that Fulham team he was involved
Yeah.
where they did the Great Escape, and they did exactly that style of football.
And
So
their Europa League run was not on Brazil 1970 football. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's be honest. Like, I think Poland have, again, they are showing something. I'm not sure what it is, but they're showing something. And what worries me is that if, like, France is either going to go one or two ways. Either it's going to be like 6-0 and Mbappe scores all six and it's just Poland completely collapse, or the footballing world collapses in on itself as Poland win 1-0. Like, and I think it's one of those things. So it's not going to be a fun game to watch for anyone again.
No, I think I'm going to have another heart attack.
But I'm going to sit and watch it quite happily.
Yeah, I'm going to have heart palpitations during the duration of that match. But I'm also kind of joking about it at the same time, thinking we'll just put 10 people in defense, play until like it goes to penalties, and then just like by chance try and win it over penalties. Like, that's the only feasible way we're going to be able to do it. That's
the tactic already. You're already playing for penalties.
Like, maybe just like.
I feel, don't worry, you'll believe me. You'll believe by the end of it. Like, I feel like, you know, that like Zlatan quote where it's like he was playing a Ferrari like it was a Fiat. I kind of feel like with this Poland team, we've talked about it. It's not quite a Ferrari. Let's say like a high-end, I don't know, a high-end Skoda or something. But there's a lot of quality in this team, and he's just refusing to use it. And I just find it really interesting. That's me trying to put a positive spin on it. I find it really interesting that he's choosing to do this and kind of fall on his, like, die on this hill. It's really weird because you could actually play quite exciting counter-attacking football and it would still stick to the same principles. Like, we're going to get onto Australia, but they kind of play the same way as Poland, but they at least try to counter-attack.
Exactly.
They try and counter-attack. That's the difference. So I'm like, just add that on. Just
exactly. That's all you need to do.
Add it on. Like,
that's all you need to do. Yeah. Just like, and the other thing I was kind of say is like, we struggle on set plays as well. Like, that's our biggest opportunity. During this match, I was thinking even Zielinski had a few opportunities to whip the ball in, just try and get on the head of a Polish player. That's all you have to do. And they were going over, they were going sideways. It was just not making any sense at all. So again, Zielinski needs the ball at his feet. He's not going to do it. So why doesn't Mikniewicz just pull him off the bench? Like, just have him coming off the bench where we need him. But yeah, it's just weird. And just to kind of complete this section, I would say, when you know it's really bad with Mikniewicz, when he takes off Berezinski for a 35-year-old defender who's playing his games in the Polish league. He normally plays as centre-back, but he's playing left-back. And yeah, that was such a weird one. That made a record for Poland as the oldest player to turn up at a World Cup, by the way. So that was interesting in itself.
There was a moment in the game just at the end where I saw 6 Polish shirts lined up. I just thought, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen. I just sent it to like my boys group on WhatsApp. I was like, oh, they're playing the classic flatback 6. I was like, this is ridiculous. They were just lined up 6 blokes in white shirts. Like, this is brilliant. Absolutely.
And then
brilliant.
Jakub Kiewel almost gave it away towards the end. It's like, oh no, of all the players to do it as well. Like, not him.
There will be questions asked about that Martinez miss at the end. I think he's just been bought like a villa on the north coast of Poland or something, because I don't know why he missed that. I don't know how he missed that.
Lots of funds are going into his account right now, basically.
Yes, that was a terrible, terrible miss. But we're going to move on from Poland. I think hopefully we've been more entertaining than any of their games have been. And we're going to move on to elsewhere in that match, or in that group even. Saudi Arabia beat Mexico. Mexico in an absolute mess. This is not the squad from 4 years ago, eh?
No, definitely not the squad. I don't know what to make of Mexico, because you kind of think on the balance of play, you kind of think they've got some players there, like your Raul Jimenez's, your Lozanos, for example, even Chavez, who scored that spectacular second goal. I don't know if you saw it, Rory.
What a hit.
The free kick. And he's been known for doing that at club level. He's actually played 12 games for the national team for Mexico. And that was his first goal for the national side. He scored that.
That's going to be goal of the tournament, by the way. That's going to be goal of the tournament, I think.
Definitely. But I think they're just going to regret not scoring a goal against Poland. That's literally it. If they'd scored a goal against Poland, we wouldn't be talking about them maybe regretting not doing enough in this game. So, but the fact that Saudi Arabia still managed to get an opportunity and dispatch, it was such a weird passage of play, because obviously after the Argentina game, everyone flicks over. It flicks over to that game. And then all I saw was this touch move suddenly, and El Suari, he's through on goal against Okoa, and he just slots it past him. And I was like, what happened? Where was that last ditch challenge? Like, if I was a Mexican player, I'd just put my body on the line. Like, you know what's going to
take the red card. Just take the red card. Yeah.
Do something. Like, you're going to lose. Lose in fashion, right? There's nothing to lose. But so weird how the dynamics of that match went, because you're like, it went down to like obviously yellow cards to potentially be the deciding factor. Maybe that's what they thought. Maybe they thought if they get another yellow card, that's it. But fascinating game, and praise to like Saudi Arabia from every Polish fan there as well, because just that goal like helped our hearts basically.
Yeah, a lot of Saudi Arabia shirts being posted out to Poland now, I imagine. But there was very quickly the Poland thing as well. The yellow cards. There was a slight moment with Kukowiak when he got the yellow card, and I was like, "Oh, here we go. Poland are going to go out on yellow cards." But no, I think Mexico, not picking Carlos Vela, not picking Hernandez even. Big decisions that Tata Martino has following Martinez following him. I think I'm not even sure Martino got his flight back to Mexico paid for. They sacked him while he was still in the country, so he's now lost his job as well, unsurprisingly. And Mexico, I worry about them for the next World Cup. I'm gonna have to take a bit more of a look at Mexican football before the next World Cup to see what state their squad is in. But from what I've seen, a lot of old players. And a lot of just very average, very, very average. For them to not beat Poland in a game that I think they should have won is worrying. So I think, Mexico, again, out of the group stage. Shocking stuff. But Saudi Arabia, absolutely hats off to you, giving us one of the tournaments, giving us one of the games of the tournament, like one of the goals of the tournament. And just, unbelievable entertainment factor. And the video of all their fans dancing to, which song is it? It's like Euro dance hit, but all their fans going mad to it is going to come to me. Unbelievable video. You would have seen it. But good. We are going to move on to the next group. That is Group C done. Group D, and we're going to start with, let's start with Tunisia as my boy Wabi Kazri brings the heat and scores an absolute beauty to topple the former colonizers as they win 1-0. Incredible scene.
That was just fantastic. I didn't anticipate them to go at that level in terms of intensity, play, etc. Probably helped also by the fact that France played a very experimental squad, which
weird. We'll get onto that as well.
Yeah, but if we talk, let's give the praises to Tunisia. Magic goal! What a goal! Like obviously, Fofana gets dispatched in midfield. Ball goes to Kazri. He just weaves past them, gets a foul in the process, and just blasts it past Madunda. Of all goalkeepers, I didn't expect at the World Cup. Madunda turns up, and he couldn't be blamed for that, because that was a fantastic shot by Kazri. But Tunisia had further chances in this match. They could have scored from a corner as well. But they just seems up for it. I mean, what can I say? The fact that France had to bring the big guns off the bench. So Mbappe almost scored here, for example. Rabiot controlled the midfield for once. Like, when you're saying Rabiot is better than what you've got as your experimental midfield, that is a worry now. But this is the thing. I don't know what else you can say. France, just weird. And maybe Deschamps made a point of this because he hasn't experimented with this France squad in general games, right?
Yeah.
So he kind of put it on the line to kind of say, prove it to me. I think off the back of this, he's going to say, you didn't show up, so I'm going to stick with my 11, aren't you?
But also, Camavinga is many things, but he's not a left back.
Exactly, there's that.
I find it so weird. Like, it's a very strange team. You got Veratu Chouameni, who's a great midfielder, and Fofana, great midfielder. on paper, that's a pretty good midfield. Although Veretout for Roma has been pretty bang average.
Being rubbish, yeah.
Guendouzi,
But also, when you look at up top, Munani, and it was what's his name, Coman as well.
Yeah.
Coman was played in the kind of forward role. Guendouzi behind him. Munani, who was released by Nantes B side, snapped up by Frankfurt in the summer. And when I was looking at his record, 22 games and like 4 goals. Like,
oh, wow.
I don't think that's kind of national squad's form. Like, surely there's better forwards in the French under 21s. But
I think this is a weird one because I imagine that the players that were thrown in strange positions for one, and they wouldn't have expected necessarily to have been thrown in for the game. Now, part of being an international squad is obviously being ready to play at any opportunity because that's your job. But I feel like that is such a strange team to look at that Deschamps maybe went a bit too mad and was like, let's, like, you could have at least kept the same formation or the same idea or the same, that was just so completely different that I think he can have set them up for a fall because Tunisia were not going to take that game lightly. It's this year is the 60-year anniversary since Tunisia got independence from France. This is like huge for them, right? I think it shows a little bit of like naivety, a little bit of like lack of awareness of like,
probably
you'll go in. This is basically a derby. This is England-Wales with steroids, if you know what I mean. Like it's a game that there's gonna be full-blooded tackles. Someone really wants to topple you, right? Now you can say that like he's resting the players, which is sensible, I think. But you're in a tournament where you've not been able to play games beforehand to get used to playing with each other. I think there's an argument for both sides, but I think arguably giving the players the rest hasn't worked because you've had to bring them off anyway. You've had to bring them on anyway because you were losing the game. So would you not have just been best to play the same team, maybe change 1 or 2, but keep the basics of that same team just to keep that flow going because you've not been able to play warm-up games. You've not been able to get like there's still going to be kind of creases to iron out. It seems like a really big risk from Deschamps, and we'll see now. Now, obviously, thankfully, France have got Poland, so you know, like they can afford to play a team. They can afford to play a team that they're going to have lots of the ball. They're going to have lots of time. They're going to have lots of chances to attack. So I feel like maybe there's a chance for them, but it'll be interesting to see how their confidence grows or how this affects the group because now those players that have been thrown in. They've been thrown in and they've lost. So now their confidence is on the ground, right?
Exactly.
And does that affect the squad harmony? Does that affect the training? I don't know. There could be a lot of like things out from this that if they don't win the tournament, you'd be looking and going, was that the moment that they should have done that?
Is this the infighting that we've been waiting for? This is collapse.
Possibly.
I don't know. I still allude back to that as Deschamps. I think he's done that to prove a point. I think he's gone there to show the general press that may have mocked him and said you play the same players, etc. I think he's just gone there to go, look, they're not ready. They're not ready. They can't go into this squad. But go on.
That is no. I think that is that's throwing some players under the bus and then some in it. Jesus Christ! Like, I told you they were shit. But Tunisia, we have to say, this tournament for African football, by the way, has been unbelievable. The African team's absolutely killing it. You will see, listeners, today as you're listening to this, we've got the game of the tournament coming up, Ghana versus Uruguay. We're going to see how that goes, but I think the African teams have really brought it to this World Cup. None of them have been disappointing. They've all like tactically been fantastic. They've had they've had their ideas, good quality players, good quality games. I'm really, really. Even though obviously I'm not African, I like African football a lot and covering the AFCON. I'm weirdly proud of African football for doing really well at this World Cup. And I think Morocco topping the group, Senegal getting through is fantastic. I love to see it. So Tunisia are another team that have done really well, came close, just not quite enough. 1-1, drawn 1, lost 1 actually isn't that bad.
No, exactly.
But we need to talk about. We're going to go to Australia, Denmark. Now, I'm going to go off on Australia because I love them. But I'm going to let you talk about Denmark first. Denmark, the new Turkey. You called it. You absolutely called it.
Yeah, I did. And just to give you another shocking stat, so I did allude to the fact that Danish strikers aren't firing on all cylinders. Well, during this tournament, they've had 10 shots on target, in total 34 shots on goal. That's the same accuracy on goal as Poland. So bear in mind, Poland had 5
Wow.
shots on goal and obviously
Wow.
17 shots in total. It's the
Damn.
same level of accuracy on goal, and that kind of shows you. Granted, they had a lot more efforts on goal in this particular match against Australia, but I feel like Australia were comfortable for the majority of
Yeah.
it. Yes,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
kind of invited it. Granted, they kind of
Mm-hmm.
expected just a draw to put them through, but then once
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
heard the
Yeah.
result in the other game and they kind of went, "Oh shit, we've got to score," then Lecky does the
Oh,
amazing, like you can see in his face, he's like, "I've got no one with me, so I might as well
I've
just
got to figure this
try
out. Yeah.
and do
Yeah.
something." And he does this little
Yeah.
weaving run and then shoots past Kasper Schmeichel. And Schmeichel's
Incredible
kind of
goal.
despairing. He's just
Yeah.
like, wow. And it was Meller that was the defender, Meller from
Mhm.
Atalanta, who expected a bit more in terms of the way he stood up against him. But yeah, let's hear your thoughts on Australia, because this Australian squad is made up of very much journeyman slash
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
experienced pros, right? And I think this is their last kind of tournament to be
Well,
together.
I think it's kind of
So,
interesting because you've got those older players like Aaron Moy and Lecky and like the players that like they are kind of reaching the twilight of their careers. But there's actually a lot of like kind of relatively exciting young players within this squad. So, for example, Harry Sutar, who is the centre back
yeah.
for Stoke, he's only 24 years old, I believe. He was
Mm,
absolutely fantastic. He's been incredible throughout the tournament. I think he won the ball to start the move that got Australia the goal. I think
mm,
he plays the ball into Lecky, or he has a key part within the goal. He's been fantastic for them. And then even players that have come off the bench. So there's been players like now I want to get the names right: Thomas Deng and Joel King. They're playing in Japan and Denmark. They've come on and made appearances and done well. They've brought on Harry Sutar, as we said. There's Aziz Behic, and there's a player, Aydin Hrustic, who's in Serie A, and Awer Mabil, who's in La Liga. So there's a few
mm,
young players in this team. Now, neither of them have had starts, mainly because of fitness issues, but there's this kind of underlying class of Australian players just on the bench, on the fringes, that are kind of on the side of that team, that mean
mm.
that this could be the start of something for Australia. Now, that being said, this is a record-breaking team for Australia. So this is the first time they've scored in every game in a group stage. It's the first time they've kept back-to-back clean sheets. It's the first time they've got through the group stage since 2006, and they've qualified for 5 World Cups in a row, right?
Yeah.
The manager, Graham Arnold, was assistant manager to Hiddink in 2006, right? So he's now taken over the job and matched that achievement. It's I think all 3 players that have scored, all of them, it's their first goal in the World Cup.
Yeah.
The whole thing has just been like smashing these records for Australia, and I think it's a country that is weird because in cricket, I fucking hate the Aussies. I hate watching Australia in the cricket. Cannot stand them. Rugby, I don't give a shit about. But football, I really like Australia, and what I like is how much it evidently means to that country for them to be on the world
Mm,
stage at anything. You know, Aussies get mad
yeah,
patriotic about
exactly.
their sports anyway, right? But for the scenes in Melbourne and stuff, I've just been like, oh my God, I don't want to be anywhere else in the world. I don't want to be
Mm,
anywhere else. It looks incredible. And I think this team, what they are, is kind of what Poland could be, but Poland could be better than them. Because Poland
yes,
have more
exactly.
ability. Poland have more ability. They could
Exactly.
play a similar style of football, which is that mid to low block, where they
Yes,
kind of
exactly.
frustrate teams. And then winning the ball higher up the pitch and
Exactly.
getting those coordinated counterattacks. Because even when Australia attack, it's not just pumping a long ball forward to Mark Viduka, right? It's like there are short, intricate passes, and it's full on like it's it, they're playing nice football when they get the ball.
Yes,
It's as
exactly.
simple as that. And I think this is kind of what Poland could be able to do. And I think Australia are kind of playing above their means and Poland are playing below their means. And I think that
Yeah.
is that's a compliment to Australia.
Very fair.
Massively.
Very fair.
And I think Graham Arnold has had a lot of criticism before the tournament. A lot of Australian fans were not happy with him. They all wanted him gone. And I think the first game, again, this is another team kind of similar to Costa Rica, right? You lose 7-0, you could spiral, but you don't. Australia get battered by France. They look like they've got no clue. He makes really odd substitutions. There's no clear game plan, and it just all looks a mess. And you're like, oh, Australia are going to get destroyed. And then what he does is in the next game, he implements a clear game plan. They know exactly what they're doing. Everyone's in a system. They've got that attacking play sorted. They've got the way that they're going to get out of their box. They've got a plan. And his substitutions actually start to make sense. I think in the game against Tunisia, he brings on a player at the 74th minute, 75th minute to play centre-back, to drop to a back five. And after that, the game's never in doubt. Yes, they have a few moments where it's a little bit like, whew, but
exactly.
It's bringing those timing the substitutions correctly and getting that system and having the plan for, right, if we're 1-0 up, this is what happens. Exactly, and I think when that player came on, it didn't feel like a desperate roll of the dice. It was, okay, it's that point. Okay, you go here, you go there, I go here. This is what we do. So it was obviously clear that they had a plan. And I think he's done really, really incredibly well. So I think he's proved a lot of people wrong. And I think there's a lot of players in this Australia team I really like. Not only Harry Suter, who I think is a genuinely classy centre-back. I think he's very, very good. I think Aaron Moy has been amazing in midfield. He's been the absolute engine. The guy never stops. I know that in the Premier League, he wasn't the most gifted, but he has never, ever stopped running.
Player.
And he's able to, like, his quick turns and able to pass the ball on and get that metronome in midfield
Exactly,
role. I think he's been fantastic. So I think Australia, again, another team that aren't terrible to watch. Yes, they're defensive,
exactly.
But they're a very good counter-attacking team. What have you thought of Australia?
Yeah, just to allude on that point as well, Jackson Irvine, who played for the likes of Burton Albion, for example, and he's playing in Germany at the moment. Is it Cottbus or someone like that? So I'm just checking.
I think
St. Pauli.
Yeah, it's the Rebel one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the Rebel team. But yeah, he was fantastic as well because he kind of does that Makalele role where he drops and covers that central area as well. So he was fantastic. But yeah, props to Mitchell Duke, who scored the goal against the other day. I've forgotten the team,
against
but
Tunisia.
Tunisia it was. And yeah, again, him and Goodwin as well. I mean, fantastic players. But when I was looking at the age of these players, like you're like, yeah, unfortunately, it does feel like it's their last tournament. But let's give them their due. They are playing really well.
There is an interesting kind of, Ellie Mengham, who does the stuff for Copper 90. I absolutely love him. Now, there's a video of him at 4 a.m. in Australia, like shouting, obviously a few sheets to the wind and like enjoying himself, but it's still incredibly articulate and very good. I love him.
Exactly,
but he says that a point about the team is like the team represents a modern Australia. It's kind of multicultural. It's young. It's exciting. The people that are getting into football, soccer is the real Australia, young, multicultural, exciting. I feel like there's a real wave behind football in Australia at the minute, which is great. Because that team in 2006, that was such a good team. And like Bresciano and Kewell and Viduka, and really exciting, good team. And I think it was, it's good to see them doing well again. It's good to see them doing well again. As long as it's not in the cricket, it's fine. As long as it's not in the cricket. So that is Group D done. And now, guys, we need to go further back in our memories. And we're going to go to Group A and Group B. Now, I think we're just going to touch on 2 games here. I don't really want to talk about Netherlands Qatar because Gakpo is very good.
Straightforward. Yeah.
Netherlands on.
It was a boring match as well. So we didn't miss out on much.
Gakpo 3 goals in his first 3 World Cup games. Pretty mad. Netherlands, I'm not that excited about. I think USA could actually beat them. USA won, Iran 0. Pulisic getting injured while scoring. Disappointing for Iran, but probably on the balance of it, USA deserved it, I think.
Yeah, I think they did. I kind of expected Iran to be a bit better than they actually performed. It has to be said, I think Carlos Queiroz killed them with the tactics, and unfortunately, he plays players like Taremi out of position, so he played him on the left-hand side rather than being a central striker. So that really cost them, because for that goal, it was Sergino Dest, where he should have been tracking back. He got into that position, headed it across, and as you say, Pulisic bundled himself in for that goal. And he was actually quite focal to a lot of the movements that they were doing. Him and McKennie, as Andy alluded to, they were fired up, I feel. And they just got the better of an poor Iranian side on the day. It has to be said.
Yeah, I think the occasions were just huge for Iran, and the last thing they needed was an overly politicized game at the end of that. So poor, I do feel bad for Iran. USA, honestly, I think USA Netherlands is going to be a hell of a watch. I think that's going to be an upset. Genuinely, I can see Holland stumbling there. Netherlands, sorry. But we're going to start with, because England we're probably going to talk for quite a bit. So we're going to start with Ecuador, Senegal. Now, Ecuador has been kind of one of our teams, one of our many teams of this tournament. Ecuador, we've kind of fallen in love with. I feel like in this game, though, they were kind of caught between two stools. I don't know how you felt about it.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I feel they set up poorly for this match. And it was so strange because you thought, just go out and try and win. Just do what you've been doing. Enner Valencia barely got a touch on the ball, which was so strange because when you compare it to the last two games, they got the ball to him. They supported him when they were doing the runs. And it was just like a contrast in terms of the style they played, because once they even got themselves back into the game, and this seems to be a very common trait in the World Cup at the moment, as soon as you get one back, you seem to concede almost immediately. It was just that concentration level. So it seems like those players just didn't click on to the fact of, we've got to now shut up shop. We've got to now protect this, at least goal. We've got it back. Let's try and protect this, because a point would have been enough potentially for them. But as it was, unfortunately, they just conceded from a corner. Koulibaly, of all players, who probably should have defended the Ecuador goal better by letting Moses Caicedo scoring in that occasion. But Koulibaly scoring from the corner, and that was it. Senegal were worthy winners, I felt.
I think it's fairly uncontentious. I think Senegal had the better chances. Senegal had a clear idea of what they had to do. And Ecuador, I think, like I said, they were caught between, do we look for a draw or do we try and win it? And they hadn't decided by the time they got on the pitch. And I think once Senegal started running at them and started going for it, Ecuador were kind of like, oh, fuck, we're in a game here and we don't really know what's happening. I felt, again, the Ecuador team, we've talked about them, they're very young, so there was a little bit of inexperience in there. I think a little bit of like rabbit in the headlights when Senegal went 1-0 up. They're like, oh, crap. But we have to say, Cisse absolutely tactically got this spot on. So he knew that Ecuador's strength was their midfield, right? Moises Caicedo, if you can get past that midfield, then you take out the strength of that team. That's exactly what he did. He had Sarr and Ndiaye just pinned on the touch lines as far back as far forward as possible, and they were just flying balls straight over. First thing, just find that winger, and just cutting the midfield out completely. And it meant the Senegal got plenty of chances. And I think it shows Cisse's tactical nous. And I think he's a manager that he obviously won the AFCON with Senegal, right? That's a great achievement. But I think he's showing that he is like a manager that should be talked about more. I think for Senegal to get out of this group is an achievement, because it was always going to be Ecuador or Senegal and Netherlands.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But I think getting over that and being like kind of comfortably in the end, I suppose, getting through, that's a hell of a statement. I was just really impressed that Senegal were able to nullify that Ecuador threat, really. And like you said, Enner Valencia barely had a touch. It's kind of sadly, it was kind of his mistake that led to the winner. And then you're like, it's kind of cruel because you were their top scorer, and but yeah, I think Koulibaly with a great volley, really, and Sarr with the coolest of penalties, which for Watford fans must have been galling. So I think he's just missed their last two penalties for Watford, and then he just takes the coolest penalty of all time for Senegal. Doesn't even sweat it. Beautiful penalty. But for Senegal, they will be up against England, and I think this is going to be a very interesting game.
Yes, exactly.
Going to be obviously no Mane for Senegal, but I think it's a team that we cannot afford to even slightly take lightly. Our defense is our weakest point. Our wing backs could be our weakest point, and they have got incredibly tricky wingers. And I think it's something that we need to pay attention to. But We could talk. Oh, yeah, how do you feel about the England-Senegal game, and then we'll talk about the England-Wales game.
I think I'm really excited to see how they'll match up. I don't actually believe England have been that poor defensively. I think defensively they've actually been probably the strongest spine for an England team for a while. And this kind of mimics the last tournament at the Euros, where defensively they were quite sure of themselves. They knew what they were doing. So I feel like it's potentially just that attacking and creativity that is lacking for England at the moment. So you saw Foden, for example, despite the fact that in the Wales game, for example, I didn't think much of the play from England in the first half was brilliant. Foden was the standout player. And I think that's going to be the interesting point, because like obviously Senegal are going to be there to shut them down and counter-attack. So how exposed does Southgate go? Does he kind of go counter-attacking himself, which means then this game goes into extra time? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. But when you've got a dilemma like, do you put Rashford in? Do you put Foden? Do you put Grealish? Do you put or bring back even the likes of Sterling into this mix? Like, I think that's the dilemma that Southgate has, right?
My what I would like to see, and I don't think this will happen, but what I would like to see is Rashford left, Foden centre, Saka right. I think I would really like to see, because I think Foden can dictate the play like that, and him in a central role is as threatening as him on the right or the left. I think he can play across anywhere. It doesn't make a difference to him. He will be a threat. I think Rashford, you have to play him just because of how impressive he's been for England. And I think Saka, obviously I love Saka, but I think he is like the best right winger we've got. So I think those are the three that I would love to see. I think in the Senegal game, we have to be on the front foot. We can't. This is a game that we have to be the protagonists of this game. We have to be the one that are going to try and attack it, because Senegal are going to be looking to catch us on the break. So we have to, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I think we're the bigger team. We have to try and go for it. We can't try and be conservative in this one. But for England, I think it was a really impressive performance against Wales in general by the end. Like you said, first half wasn't fantastic, but once we got the first one, Wales kind of collapsed. And yeah, it was just quite professional, wasn't it? It's nice to see Rashford doing well. It's really nice to see Rashford doing well.
It was nice to see that confidence in him. And I think England were professional in the job that they did, because I think when you saw the second half, they scored one goal, you're kind of, right, they're going to sit back and relax now. Then they got another one. You're thinking, blimey, they're actually going for us. They're actually like literally going to town. And maybe they went with a game plan of get a quick goal. It was basically what Argentina did to Poland, right? They frustrated them. Wales were very similar in the approach. I was disappointed by Wales because I didn't feel there was much fight. And like the fact that he brought off Bale in the second half, or at the beginning anyway, before it started, that kind of shows you maybe he shouldn't have played in this match. Like, I don't know if that's the right thing, but I feel like it goes back to what Andy said on Monday's show, which is they've trusted the old legacy team players, right? For example, so therefore there was no kind of spark. There was nothing new that was coming through. And I feel like almost they set themselves badly in this match. Danny Ward didn't come out with much favours.
That third goal is bloody terrible. It's so bad.
And Rashford, obviously free kick is what we're alluding to here, which is he kind of steps. He does. Why do keepers do it? They step to their right hand side when the striker is going to hit it to the left hand side, and they're anticipating that he might go for the near post or something like that. But then just have a player on the line. Then, if that's the way you're feeling like this, and I feel like Wales.
And the third goal just goes through his legs.
Yes.
Like, I think he has to do better there. He has to do better with that last goal. I think Wales are just going to be so disappointed. I think, like, I was talking to the boys about it, like, on the WhatsApp group, and I was like, obviously, I support England and Ireland, right? I have the gift of being bi-national. And I really sympathise with Wales fans, because I remember when Ireland qualify for any tournament, it's such a fucking massive achievement. And then I just remember, was it Euro 2001 of him, where we just got absolutely embarrassed by Spain 4-0 or something. And the whole thing was just like, oh God, it was horrible. And you're like looking forward to this tournament, and then you just don't turn up, and you realise that actually you're not that great. And it was just, I feel like I was watching Wales, I could just see that Ireland team. And I was like, I just feel sorry for you guys. Because like, Yeah, part of me thinks it's funny that you spend the whole week wheeling out Michael Sheen to make speeches on TV and then you get battered 3-0. That is funny. But then I do sympathize with you and I'm like, God, I just that level of disappointment, like the whole build up and stuff. And I know the achievement for them is getting to the World Cup. But I think a manager like Robert Page, he's done a great job to get them there.
Yeah.
He got sacked by Northampton. Like, my mate's a Northampton fan, and he was like, he's not a good manager. Like, he's not a good manager. And I think obviously we know why he got the job, right? Or the circumstances that led to him getting the job. So he was thrown at him, and he did an incredibly good job to get them to the tournament. But I think he kind of got found out at this tournament. Yeah, I think he got found out. So. And I think the other managers were like, oh, right, well, you quiet him, done.
That's it. And I think he relied too much on Ramsey and Bale to get him out of this.
Yeah.
Like, it was ultimately, he kind of tried to inspire the team by having these kind of legacy players, as I allude to, but also these star players that can, on the day, be a real focal point for Wales. But I think it was a tournament too far for those two. Yeah. I almost felt like they weren't in the right frame of mood, potentially not even maybe form-wise in the greatest positions. Because if you compare that to the last tournament, I feel like Ramsey and Bale were better players then. Whereas this time round, unfortunately, it's just maybe a tournament too far. But you look at the positives, they've got players like Ampadu coming through, for example. He's been
Nico
playing.
Williams is a great player.
Yeah, Connor Roberts, I think, is a really good right back, for example.
Brennan Johnson is exciting. He's definitely exciting. I think there is a young kind of like group of players there, but as you said, they were relying too much on like, oh, Bale will just drag us out of this one, and he wasn't able to. So unfortunately for Wales, they have gone home probably. But England, we keep going. It feels like nobody's getting ahead of themselves too much this tournament. I've not heard it's coming home yet, really, which is good. I think everyone is keeping it quite sensible.
Bit more reserved. I think they know it's getting to that part of the tournament where it's knockout phases. There's better teams ahead. We've
not been massively tested. Apart like USA were a difficult game, but we've not been massively tested. So I think Senegal's going to be the first real test, I think.
Exactly.
But listeners, that's the end of the review. We need to very, very quickly go to a preview, and then we've got some delicious Serie A talk to finish the show with, because we all thought Italian football was hibernating for a month, but it's woken up, guys, and it has been incredible. But we're going to get to it. First, we need to preview the last of the groups. We're nearly at the end. Tomorrow, or today, as you guys are listening, we have South Korea taking on Portugal and Ghana taking on Uruguay. I'm going to be teaching at 4:00, and I am absolutely fuming. I am fuming, because this is the game that when the draw was made, I was looking forward to the most. I was like, Ghana, Uruguay, boom. Now, I don't know if you saw the press conference today. Luis Suarez, in his typical kind of Luis Suarez-ness, said, and I think he's right.
To a degree,
it's not my fault.
I didn't take the penalty.
It's not my fault. You missed it. 100% right. But also just the right level of shithousing to mean that he's going to get a kick in tomorrow when he's on the pitch. I don't know if you've seen the video of that. Do you know Emre in the Turkish league when he started getting the shit kicked out of him because he was racist?
Yes.
Have you seen that video?
I have many times.
I feel like that's going to be Luis Suarez tomorrow. He's going to get booted about 8 foot in the air every time he gets on the ball. But it's going to be an exciting game. In that group at the moment, let me get the standings up just so we can see what the situation is. We have Portugal top on 6, Ghana second on 3 points, South Korea on 1 point, and Uruguay on 1 point. So off the top of my head, if Uruguay beat Ghana, they go through. If South Korea beat Portugal, they go through, but Portugal are basically through. Is that right?
Yeah, so you're right in that kind of analogy. I feel South Korea is a big ask against this Portuguese side that's probably already, I appreciate they've already kind of progressed, but I think South Korea were not looking forward to this, because at the end of the last match against Ghana, their heads dropped.
Yeah,
They did not look like they were in the frame to kind of.
Well, Son was crying again, wasn't he? He's always bloody crying,
Exactly.
but Son was crying again. Yeah. Son's crying.
We've got that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this Ghana Uruguay match because I think this is a tasty one. This is going
to be mad.
Honestly. Even if Ghana do lose this, I can see them just going hell for leather, just trying to take out and swipe out Suarez. Like, just get the red card.
Even if he's on the bench.
Yeah.
Even if he's just 2-footing him on the bench. Like, I think.
Can you imagine if they win, though? They're going to do that Van Nistelrooy celebration in front of him as well, aren't they?
I think, like,
that would be hilarious.
What we need for the narrative, I just feel like so many ghosts will be laid to rest if Ghana just win. We just need the Ghana win, and it will just feel like there's some karmic justice. But you know what's going to happen? Suarez is going to come on the 80th minute, and he's going to score a winner. That's exactly what's going to happen. And he's going to give it this or something, and they're all just going to go mad, and it's going to be box office no matter what happens. But I really want Ghana to do it. I really want Ghana to win it. I cannot tell you. And then the late kickoffs, we have, let me get them quickly because I've gone off the tab. We have, gone too far. My God, we've got Serbia taking on Switzerland and Cameroon taking on Brazil. Now, Serbia, some interesting rumors out of the Serbia camp that Vlahovic has been banging the goalkeeper's wife or something. And that's why nobody is, apparently it's all melting down in the Serbia camp. Nobody likes each other. I don't know if it's just Twitter chatter, but it feels like a lot of Serbian football fans that I follow on Twitter have kind of been talking about it. All things not happy in the Serbia camp. Cameroon, Brazil are going to kind of win that comfortably. I think they seem to just be doing that, don't they? But in that group, the situation is Brazil are already through. Switzerland on 3 points, Cameroon on 1 point, and Serbia on 1 point. So Cameroon need to beat Brazil in order to go through, and Serbia need to beat Switzerland and hope that Brazil beat Cameroon to go through, I think.
Yes, you're correct.
I think that's how it goes. How it goes. My maths is terrible, guys. I'm not counting how many yellow cards each team has. We do not have the time. But I think that's the end of the preview. But off the topic, just very quickly, Adam, who goes through from those groups?
So obviously Portugal through. I think I'm going to go with Ghana to go through and join them.
Come on, Black Stars. Let's do it.
And obviously Brazil are certs. They're already there. I think I want to say Switzerland join them. Yeah, I think they will. I think Shaqiri and maybe Xhaka remind Serbia about their backgrounds, and then
nice. There's so much there.
Just to spice up a bit more. Especially now that you said Vlahovic has moved to apple cart down there. That I did not know, but it kind of explains why he hasn't been playing, right?
And Serbia did hang a very controversial flag in their changing room after one of the games, and apparently could be in a lot of trouble from FIFA. Something against Kosovo or something all over the place. Keeping it classy, Serbia. But we do need to go on to. I've been waiting. We're going to take a quick break, listeners. You know what? We're going to take a quick 2-minute break. Not even that long. We'll see you on the other side.
Hi, my name is Dimi Konstantopoulos, and you're listening to the Anglo-Italian podcast.
And here we are. As I said, we thought Italian football was at rest. We thought that during the World Cup, they would not be creating any headlines. But listeners, I'm sure you've heard it. And I think you might have seen my voice and my face if you were lucky enough on the Monday night stream as I read the story as Adam put it in the private chat, and my eyes expanded. The entire Juventus board have resigned. Now, what has led to this, I hear you ask? Well, you may be familiar with the term plusvalenza. Now, last season, me and Tommy, in fact, were talking about what this actually is. And it's the idea that Juventus have been overestimating what their players are worth, especially during COVID, in order to make their accounts look less bad. These is deals including Mandragora, which they sold for a massive amount of money. Luliano, I believe, who's like a youth player. There was the deals with Sassuolo, like Locatelli, where they sign a player, but they pay it over the next 20 years. There's a lot of all these kind of dodgy deals that have meant that there are indictments for arrest. This is not a thing that's going to go away quietly. They are pursuing criminal criminal charges. So this is false accounting. This is financial fraud. This is all the things that Juventus do best. I've seen a lot of terrible takes on Twitter from Juve fans this week, saying that Juve disappearing would be the death of Serie A. I've just got one quick thing to say about that. The last time that you were caught cheating and relegated, the last time, not the first time, the last time you were relegated and caught cheating, Milan won the Champions League the next year, and Inter won it 2 years after that. And it was the most successful period in modern history for Italian teams in Europe. I'm sure it's just a coincidence, but Juventus just not being there does not kill Italian football. Trust me.
Exactly.
What were your initial thoughts on this before we get into what could actually happen?
Yeah, so I heard about this creative accounting from Juventus for probably past 2 to 3 seasons. And I think we've kind of almost speculated on it when we've kind of alluded to likes of how did they manage to pull off Vlahovic, for example? And a few seasons back, it was Ronaldo, for example. So how did they manage to pull that off? And on top of that, pay the high wages to likes of Ramsey, for example, Pogba, etc. There's a number of players that I haven't mentioned in that mix. So yeah, when that news did break, I was like, yes, they've got egg on their faces. They know they're in for the shit. Obviously, Paratici is rumoured at Spurs to be arrested as well. So that kind of indicts him to be involved at some point as well. But that is like typical Juventus, typical way of doing things. And then just don't seem to learn. And it's a cult. It almost feels like it's a cultural thing that they need to do it.
Built into the bricks in that club. It is in the walls. It is everywhere. I do not understand it. I heard of, before I get onto Paratici and Spurs, which is just beautiful. I think there was a really interesting, and it had Kesey, our favorite, in it, interviewing Del Piero, because he was there as the news kind of broke, right? And Del Piero, everybody loves Del Piero. Nobody hates Del Piero, right? He's already been invited back to the club. They're like, Alessandro, come back and give us some good PR, please, right? But he kind of put it in a really interesting way. And he was like, it's the history of Juventus that you have these incredible highs and then these incredible lows. And yes, but what causes the incredible lows, Alessandro? Talk about what causes the incredible lows, because it's not just a dip in form.
Exactly.
It's getting caught match fixing. But with Paolo Rossi before the 1990 World Cup, right? That was, or the 86 World Cup. I think it was 86. Before 86, that was Juventus and Rossi, right? Then you've got Calciopoli in 2006. You've got Plus Valencia, which has been going on for years, right? This weird grip that they have on clubs that they're able to negotiate with Sassuolo and just go, no, we're going to pay you over 30 years and you're going to accept it. Like the power that this club has, it's not just in football, it's in Italy, the power this club has. It's like, I think you have to kind of live here to kind of understand it. It's a political institution. Exactly. It's not a football club. It is the whole thing. It just controls and does what it likes. And I think this is it's just, this is why I hate them so much. I hate them more than most English teams. Like, there's no other foreign team that I hate as much as Juventus. And it's because it's almost like a badge of honor to them that they can get away with doing this, and they'll just do it over and over again, and they'll keep winning. And the fans have zero shame in it. All they do is just point the finger at other clubs. And like, yes, with Calciopoli, there's an interesting thing of the fact that Fiorentina got caught and got relegated as well, by the way. Milan got caught and got a points deduction. And I can't remember the third one. And the fact that the company that did all the wiretaps was owned by Inter, I'm sure, is not a coincidence, right? Like, there are things where you can point fingers, right? But as I put on Twitter when it all broke, whenever there's cheating and whenever there's a scandal, Juventus are always there, and they're always the biggest culprit. Yeah. And that is why, for their fans to turn around and point the finger at other clubs, they could be doing it as well. And that will be punished as well. But your club does it repeatedly and shamelessly at every opportunity. And I just cannot stand anything about them. And I think where this goes is really interesting, because with Paratici now at Spurs, he is going to be arrested. They're trying to arrest him. I don't know if they can in the UK. I assume they can, but
I think they will. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's due to be arrested. The club that's done quite a bit of business with Juventus in the last couple of years, Spurs. That could be interesting. They did pay quite a lot of money for Bentancur. We'll see. Even the Kulusevski deal was a bit dodgy, so we will see what comes from that. If Spurs get involved as well, then all my Christmases have come at once, I'll be honest. But I think where this goes with Juventus is really interesting because it's not match fixing. It's not a sport. It's not a sporting crime that they're being tried for here. It's a crime. It is financial
fraud,
properly crime. So it's interesting because they got relegated to Serie B with Calciopoli.
Originally, should have been Serie C as well.
Yeah, they managed to blag their way out of that one. I think realistically, this could go further. I think genuinely, realistically, this could go further, especially when you throw in the thing that they had that whole scandal with trying to get Luis Suarez a fake passport. That was a massive crime as well. Like, that's a huge fucking international crime, trying to forge documents. Like, there is a lot going on at Juventus at the moment, and we've talked about it for months. We've said in the background, on the pitch, it's crap, but what's going on in the background is much, much worse. And this is all of it starting. Now, this is going to take months. It's not going to be the end of this season. It's not going to be next season. I think maybe over the summer we might see some movement of what's going to happen. But this could be Juventus down to Serie D. This could be Juventus starting from scratch. This could be like Napoli had to when they went out of existence and just had to start again. It could be like that. Now, when Napoli did it, it was just because they went bankrupt. But I think like it could be that bad. And I think for genuine Juve fans, you have to be like, look, no, the classic line of nobody wants to see a football club go out of business, etc. But with a massive but, when a club has been asking for it several times, you only get so many chances of sympathy before it's just go fuck yourself. Like, where do you think this ends, and how do you feel about how you think it ends?
I think it will end with a number of appeals, to be fair. I think it's interesting that we'll probably see the dirt on certain individuals like Pavel Nedved. I'll be curious to learn a bit more. So as we, I think there was a tweet that said he'll be getting used to a different sense of handcuffs rather than in certain rooms. That was brilliant. But yeah, I think Agnelli as well, the fact that his family have been so enriched with the club as well, the fact that he's probably the man
they've owned it for decades. Like,
he's the man that's brought down that dynasty. Like, that is going to be so fascinating because obviously I think he's got a bit of trouble just elsewhere in his kind of empire of like estates and things that he owns as well at the moment. So it's not a happy place with Agnelli and that family at the moment. But yeah, I think as a club, like you say, they probably will be relegated. It'll be just a question of what level, how far low they'll go down. I think they will probably go Serie B with a points deduction again, and then it'll be just a question of maybe if they can hold on to certain players. But I think they'll probably, I think if you're talking about financial...
None of them are hanging around, man. None of them are hanging around.
Well, this is the thing. Didn't Lilian Thuram and the like stay for one season, didn't they?
Del Piero, Buffon, and...
Trezeguet, I want to say.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So there was a few handful of players. But again, when we compare the squads, there were players that were probably better quality than what they've got right now.
And they had a level of loyalty to Juventus. I don't know how much. If they go down, the players that are going to stay are Bonucci, because nobody else will take him. Fagioli, because he's a young Juventus player. He gives a shit about Juventus. And Miretti, right, are the three that I would be like, okay, they'll stay. If you think Pogba or Vlahovic or anyone's playing in Serie B, you are high off your ass. Like, they are all going.
They're going to be sold.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really fun to watch, and there's going to be a great Netflix documentary in about 5 to 7 years about this. It's going to be great, but we will see.
Exactly.
All I can say is I hope they get punished the correct amount. I hope they get punished as much as they should be, because I'm just fucking sick to death of Juventus and they're cheating. Absolutely sick of it. So yeah, hopefully it's another step for Serie A to thrive. It'll be another step in Serie A survival.
Fingers crossed.
We can hope. Well, guys, that is us on the Juventus and Serie A review, I think, really.
Yeah,
We'll keep you posted on this. We definitely
exactly.
will. But for now, as always, please follow us on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, on Instagram at Anglo-Italian Pod. Hit the like and subscribe, and we are going to send you out with our partnership with Cards of Qatar.
Yes. So again, highlighting 3 individuals that unfortunately lost their lives in the process of creating the World Cup itself. So we'll dedicate this first one to Mohammed Hamid Al Malita. At the time of the accident, Mohammed was employed by QD SBG Constructions Najama Begum. Najama Begum, the widow, says they have struggled to survive after the fatal accident. He was the breadwinner. I can't pay for my children's school or any other necessities. Najama Begum says instead of attending 9th grade, her 15-year-old son has to work at the farm, and the daughter, who is 17, is devastated that she couldn't start the school she was accepted to in the fall. Next individual is Som Bahadir Sarisha. 4 years ago, Som Bahadir Sarisha started to work as a security guard. Since then, he did not take a single day off and was never back home, says his daughter Sangeeta Sarisha. They were planning for his forthcoming homecoming when they found out that he died in his sleep. The day before he died, he was shopping for his son's birthday. He bought a watch for our mother and shoes for my brother. When the body arrived at the airport together with the father's belongings, all the presents were gone. We have tried to contact his employer, but now we have given up, says the daughter. Finally, Ahmadin Mia Hawari. On December 18th, 2020, 24-year-old Ahmadin Mia Hawari died. Even today, his father has a hard time believing that his son took his own life, and the father is wondering if he was forced to do so. What he told me was that he planned to get married as soon as he returns from Qatar. He wanted a wedding with drums and fanfares as soon as he earned some money. Every time he sent money home, he urged me to start with the necessity wedding preparations. But instead of a wedding, I had to arrange a funeral. When he came home in a coffin, says Islam Maya Dobby.